What's good, folks? This is SilentMode, maker, artist, and LEGO enthusiast. I'm going to talk about my experience at Printed Worldconference, or Printed, back in May, and why I'm more of a creator than a content creator. A huge shout out to Jonas for organising the event and for the invite, and to Prash of Prash Makes for the encouragement. Printed was a golden opportunity for my first ever trip to Amsterdam, having missed out on the rite of passage. I was so excited, I ended up in Amsterdam 2 months early. Of course, the main reason for attending Printed was networking within the 3D printing space. While I'm still new to the protocols and the big names, I hope to meet like-minded creators and enthusiasts. But if I'm honest, a major motivator was the hope of making money. I've been out of work for months now, and we have a horrible job market where companies are hiding behind AI. Now more than ever, I want to have something coming in without relying on a job. In any case, it was important enough to be there in person that I used the last of my savings. The first noteworthy thing was that Printed had its own AI theme tune which played throughout the event. It reminded me of those live self-help motivational events, except there were no books or courses on sale. Perhaps what was being sold was the dream of becoming a successful content creator. Similarly, we were led into the event with the boilerplate line, "You get out what you put in." For me, that's where things started to go downhill. What it really means is that there's no babysitting, no introductions, no networking aids, and most of all, no guarantee that you'll find what you're looking for. I know we're grown people and we should be able to handle things ourselves, but I know from years of experience that what we get from effort isn't the same for everybody. My time at Printed was a reminder of my second rule for living, that how we're treated is a choice. Let's get this out the way. It was disturbing that some of the higher profile individuals at Printed wanted nothing to do with me, as evidenced by the dirty looks and efforts to avoid conversation. On everything holy, I have no idea why this happens, especially with people I've never met. But I also realize, because while it's sometimes from men, it's mostly from women,
sometimes the men, mostly from the women,
that I'm never going to find out. If I had to guess, based on the women involved who don't deserve to be mentioned, it's about looks, that I'm considered too unattractive to hang around, and the widespread belief that ugly people shouldn't have anything. I hope to goodness that in 2025 it has nothing to do with ethnicity. On the other hand, I was able to network and converse with others, whether familiar faces or newcomers. There are also those I should have approached but didn't, which was on me. While I was overly concerned about hanging around too long and being annoying, my biggest regret was not spending more time focused on who I was able to talk to. Something made obvious by Printed, and before that Smurf, is that there's an inner circle where the attention is directed and focused. If you want to know who's part of this inner circle, they were invited to pose on stage at the end of the event. This isn't a criticism, it's how all social and hobby groups operate. That's also how most of us operate individually. There's an inner circle, also known as the in crowd, containing the elites. There's an outer circle where most of us reside, and some strive to become part of the inner circle. Outside the outer circle is a place for those who have no interest or involvement in the group. And I would also suggest there's also a phantom zone, or an almost invisible layer surrounding the outer circle, for people who've been cast out for whatever reason. Given the dirty looks and avoidance I received at Printed and other events, I get the impression that I'm destined for the phantom zone if I'm not there already, similar to what's happened within the LEGO space. Going back to getting out what you put in, I'd like to believe that I can improve my standing through hard work, whatever that means, and this thing called consistency. But I also have a strong suspicion that being inducted into the inner circle, or finding oneself in the phantom zone, is based on something else. I realized something as a result of going to Printed, that I never actually wanted to be a content creator. I'd rather spend my time and energy creating, and would rather be known for my work. Unfortunately, it's something I fell into and have to do out of necessity, because just as within the LEGO space, very few people promote or even mention me. It also became apparent that it's doubtful I would ever join this inner circle. Marco Pierre White once stated that chefs become celebrities because they project their personalities, with obvious examples including Gordon Ramsay and Ainsley Harriott.
Celebrities tend to be celebrities because of their personality, because of their ability to project on screen. I'm not very good at projecting on screen. I'm just a cook.
Long story short, high-profile content creators have high profiles because of their personalities, and I would strongly argue their image. That's why they have so many subscribers, followers, and patrons. But let's assume I'm wrong and there was room in the inner circle for this ugly, soft-spoken male of colour. Here's an interesting question I'd encourage aspiring celebrities to answer themselves. How would I use my influence? Someone used theirs at Printed to ensure a girl won a prize, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but acknowledged they were able to do. In my case, I thought about it as if I were invited to speak and what my talk would be about. I'd like to outline my success as a maker, artist, and LEGO enthusiast, despite not having the privileges most take for granted: a significant other, a close network of friends, a production crew, access to companies, money in the bank, and so on. Although I'm by definition a nano creator, I could give a brief talk right now on how I've gotten this far. I'm also reminded of Black Mirror and its best episode, 15 Million Merits. There's the idea, and then there's what I would actually do, given the power. Assuming there's another opportunity to attend Printed, the most important thing I can do is show people what I'm about. If I want to be seen as a legitimate creator, it takes more than showing up in a branded sweatshirt. I had a good start with bringing some small 3D printed models to display, and also traded some maker chips, business cards, and stickers. What was missing was having an on-point online presence for showing examples of work. There's a lot of work to be done on my social media accounts, personal websites, and YouTube channel. Most important of all, I should have a killer project under my belt, ready to show off. That's partly why I've announced and started my Gumball Advent Calendar project. As far as the networking side goes, the fact that I create and am therefore a creator is proof that I belong in the environment. I have to realize that it's okay to hang around people who want my presence, and that it's also fine if certain people don't want my presence. It's important to remember that making changes doesn't mean things will work out differently. Despite our efforts, there will always be people who still won't like us. Rather than give up, it's more empowering to do everything we can before acknowledging that it just won't happen. Over the last couple of years, I found that I didn't necessarily get what I wanted, but what I needed. While I haven't made a penny as a result of going to Printed, it was a golden opportunity to visit Amsterdam and a valuable networking experience. I've realized there's a lot more I have to do if I'm to be taken seriously as a creator. I want to mention that I don't have any beef with anyone in the 3D printing space. I acknowledge that sometimes I make a bad first impression, but I'm not looking to make enemies. That said, there were people at Printed that I won't have anything to do with, now or in the future. They've demonstrated who they are and what they're about. Finally, I want to give a shout out to those who gave me the time of day at Printed. Filament Stories, Prash, Carlos, Arseni, both Jonathans from Multiboard and The Next Layer, Pooch, Recycling Fabric, Redline Filament, Joseph Prusha and Prusha Research, and everyone I've connected with on social media. This is SilentMode, maker, artist, and LEGO enthusiast, encouraging you all to do your thing.